I've had somebody come up to me and say, I really want this skirt, but it's $75 and put it back. And 3 minutes later, somebody else came up and bought that $75 skirt.
Welcome to the Designers, Plants, and Coffee podcast, where we discuss how to succeed as a designer while staying true to yourself, finding peace in the process, and making money doing what we love. Subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get into it.
Welcome back.
All right, Naima, this is you.
We survived our first episode.
Oh, yes, we did. Tangents and all.
Listen, technical difficulties, all the stuff you don't get to see.
Yes,
but today, I am going to welcome everybody into this colorful world of fearless threads. Don't look at me as inspiration. And I did not bring any fearless threads with me today, but next episode. But we're all wearing.
I got you covered. I got a headband on.
All wearing fearless threads. So fearless threads is my brainchild to take these African print fabrics and make them into something that is wearable, but is wearable for a person who is not so bold as they would put on like full African print head to toe. So I decided to go into accessories. I always get people who say, I really want to wear African prints, but I think it's too much for work. And I always say, start with earrings, Yeah. Make your tote bag your color statement. So I have cultivated this baby. This baby has been 2 or 3 different things until I found exactly what my niche is. I found what my top products are. I did it. It took a long time to get here. It took some tears. It took some I'm going to quit. It took some this is the power of divine intervention. Every time I wanted to quit, something major happened. I was going to quit. And I got a call from one of my friends to do a collection for a museum shop. And they were going to do it outright. It was no commission. They were going to buy my products to sell in the museum shop. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to quit. I get it. So I had to put together this presentation and go present it at the museum. And I was on the outside, I was steel, right? On the inside, I was like, I'm gonna cry in the car. But this is like, I left my mark. I was like, oh my goodness, my stuff is in a museum shop. I took the whole family, we extra. And then that just kind of turned into this love of bringing this color and this culture. And everybody who knows me knows I love Black people. I'm rooting for everybody Black. Yeah. I am all Black all the time. Ups and downs, trials and tribulations, I made it and I'm here and I'm not in Target yet, but that is my 5-year plan. I'm going to start small and hopefully get myself into Amazon Handmade in the next year. My mission right now is to see what product I want to put on Amazon Handmade that is easy for me to recreate, since I still do all of the work myself. But that's the next big thing, is going to be Amazon Handmade. So look out for it. Look out for it, everybody. Amazon Handmade is coming 2024. I don't know when in 2024, but it's coming. That's a glimpse into the world of Naima and the world of Fearless Threads and kind of what I do.
So if someone wanted to do what you do, and they had no experience, how would you tell them to start?
If you have a product and you believe in your product and your product is good, find your space. I started out my very first business and how I got into doing pop-ups. I'm in the DC area and there was a market called Fenton Street Market. And my mother, my ride or die, my road dog, my very first market, I had a Beetle. I had a convertible Beetle, right? See. I had a round card table. We went to Ames or somewhere that morning and bought a tent. No weights, no nothing. And at the time I was making baby quilts because that was going to be the next big thing, right? All this work, baby quilts. I was selling a baby quilt for $65. We won't go into that. Yeah. But I went, and this was,
you want to get back to that one. I'm gonna bring it back. Okay.
Right. This was before I found my niche though. And this was before I started having exclusively African print. But that's where I started to develop this brand and cultivate this brand. And 2 years after that very first pop-up, I still have my very first dollar, May 2011. But my sister and I sat down and we decided to rebrand. And we threw darts at the wall. We wrote words. And then I said, I like Fearless, but I want it to be soft and strong. So it was Fearless Threads. So Fearless Threads was born. We had this pink and black logo. A couple of years later, everybody knew me from this pink and black logo because, again, I jumped out there and I did these pop-ups. And it was at one of these pop-ups, a shop was like, we want to sell your stuff. And I was like, okay, what you need? Take whatever you want off the table. And we wrote on a piece of paper what they took, what the commission was. We signed it, and I was in a shop. And as I started doing more pop-ups in the neighborhood, more and more people was like, you're in such and such shop. You're the pink and black lady. So it kind of became this thing that I was this pink and black lady. So I will say back, look, roundabout way to get, y'all know I can talk, to get back to the question at hand is jump out there. You have to try it. You have to put your toe in. You also have to be prepared for this costs too much. Why does this cost so much? Oh my God, can I get it for? Well, can you make it this way? Well, why did you use this color thread? You know, you have to have the will and the thickest skin ever to get in this business and to put yourself out there to talk to people in that way, because some people just don't want to see you successful. I don't think they do it intentionally. I think it's just that mentality of they expect Black businesses to not have quality. You know,
some of them do it intentionally.
I'm being politically correct. We
gotta be real.
Keep it real. Okay, a lot of them do it intentionally. Yeah, I have been at a pop-up and I've had somebody come up to my booth and pick something up and turn around and tell her friend, "Oh, you can make this."
But she didn't.
I've had somebody come up to me and say, I really want this skirt, but it's $75, and put it back. And 3 minutes later, somebody else came up and bought that $75 skirt. So you can't let that negativity affect you. And it's going to affect you. And you're going to cry, but you're going to cry and you're going to write it in the sand and you're going to let it wash away and you're going to get right back out there that next weekend. And you're going to do it again and you're going to keep doing it and you're going to get a following. And it's easier now with social media. And, you know, when I was doing this, I had to take flyers to different places and say, Fenton Street Market is this weekend. Come see me at Fenton Street Market. So now it's a lot easier to put yourself out there. It's just a lot of work. You have to be prepared for the work that goes into it. I was working a full-time job. I was coming home and I would sew until midnight. And then I would get up and go to work the next day. And then I'd have to stop and go to the grocery store. And, you know, life still goes on outside of all of that creating. But the one thing for me is I have very, very good support system of family and friends who have been with me since day one. And even through this brand, I've made new friends through this brand who are still with me to this day and who come to everything I do and who buy stuff even when they have a million of that thing. So you got to believe in yourself and you got to jump out there. You got to try.
So I'm gonna circle back to the first
Talk on
thing
it. I thought you would forget.
The first thing you did, that you charged $65 for a quilt that took you how long to make?
A crib size quilt.
Okay.
That was 9 blocks. In quilting world, a block is that one square. So I would design each block, and I picked up quilting from my mother quilts. So I would design each square and I would put it in, and you got to do the backing and you got to do the middle part and you got to sew through all those layers and you got to bind it off. $65. Until a lady at my job asked me to make 2 quilts for her. And I told her the price and she said, that's insane. And she gave me $200.
Exactly.
And bought her own materials. But you have to not be afraid to price the things at what they're worth. Exactly. And that was my thing. I've always struggled with pricing my things. I'm like, oh my gosh, nobody's going to want it. And then someone said to me, I think it was my sister said to me one time, the people who don't want to pay that aren't your people.
Exactly. See, that's what I wanted to get to. Because my thing is like pricing a quilt that took you, I don't know how many hours to make.
Not hours.
Even including,
not hours. Days.
See, that's not even including the fabric.
Right.
It takes about 4 hours just to cut it out.
Cut it out.
Yeah.
Squares. That's not even intricate.
Right.
You live and learn. You're young and dumb. You live and learn. I stopped making quilts very, very fast.
Exactly. Because I'm just thinking, it's like, I don't make quilts because of the time that it takes, and
Yes.
I give it to people that do it because I've seen some intricate stuff.
Yes.
And I mean, and they cost money.
I have a very dear friend who makes art quilts. That is her business. And she takes her quilted pieces, which she will sell the originals, but she makes print out of these quilted pieces. And you can see the texture in these prints that
Mm,
she does. I mean, again, it's all about Black people and things like that. But to watch her thought process to me is amazing. I told her one day, I'm going to curate a show for you. I don't know when it's going to happen. We might both be in a wheelchair, but I am going to curate a show for you.
And does she do this as a full-time thing, or does she do this as a hobby? Does she sell this stuff?
Oh, she sells it.
She sells it.
She's like me. She's dual. So she works part-time and then
Okay.
she does her art part-time. But it's nuts,
Yeah.
nuts. So the one big takeaway, if you think your product is worth $250, you put $250 on that price tag and your people will come.
I have a question for someone who's never done this before. If you buy fabric for maybe $5 a yard, right? And you use about a half a yard of that fabric, and it takes you about 3 hours to make it. What's your markup? How do you charge it?
See, for me, it's tricky because I am guilty of not paying myself. So one of my smallest pieces takes the most work, right? I make a crossbody, and that crossbody probably has 6 pieces and a zipper. And I'm doing that twice. So I'm doing the lining and I'm doing the outside of the bag and putting the
Right.
zipper in. I'm putting the hardware on. And I charge $50 for it. But I charge $50 for it because although it's a lot of pieces, it's scraps,
Right.
So I'm
Right.
not using actual fabric pieces. So I
Right.
make a tote bag. The tote bag I'll say is probably about 3/4 of a yard. So we'll say it's a yard. I buy my fabric 6 yards for $15, or $12 to $15, depending on the quantity that I buy. So I'm running about $3 a yard. I'll sell that tote bag for $25.
Okay.
It's not the labor so much as to the amount of fabric that I'm using. Because
Right.
if I was to charge for my my labor, and I also assembly line so I can't even really say it takes me an hour to make a tote bag because I might sew 5 outsides of tote bag an hour. And then in the next hour I might sew the straps. And
Right.
then in the next hour, I might sew the inside. And then the next day, I might take 2 hours to put them all together. But that doesn't even get into the labeling
Right.
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 and the packaging
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
and the ironing, the ironing, the
Right.
ironing. I don't know why I picked a hobby with ironing. It's my least favorite chore. But even if you get into the minutia of it, I got to use interfacing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I got to buy zippers.
Yeah.
You want to get really technical, I have to buy thread.
Right.
So to get into all those very fine details and say, I used 36 inches of thread
Right.
off of a spool of 300 yards of thread.
Right.
It's just
Right.
too much for
Right.
me. The math don't math in my head. So I just charge what I want to charge and people pay what they want to pay. Like this earring that I have on, I'm going to take it off so we can hold it up. This earring, this is a scrap. This is a 1/4 inch piece of fabric, and I don't know if you can see it.
See it.
But with this particular one, I had some leftover faux leather vinyl. So I said, I'm gonna combine them. This is the biggest size earring I make. This is bigger than the ones you're wearing, Zaire. I
Oh,
charge
really?
$45 for. Yeah, this is the size of your head. I charge $45 for these
Right. Right.
because I get carpal tunnel wrapping these things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
labor intensive. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
had a lady ask me one time, how come the earrings cost more than a bag? I said, because they're more work.
You got to charge for your labor. You
Yes.
got to
Yes,
You
charge
have
for your
to.
labor.
yes,
So
yes.
get
But I
her stuff
calculate.
now. No, get Naima's stuff now before her
Yes.
prices go up, because we got to talk.
Yes.
No, I calculate my labor differently than this hourly rate. I can't say that I would, because quite honestly, in my professional life, I was making $60 an hour.
Right.
So it's never going to compare to that. And because I love what I do and I know people are going to buy it, I price accordingly.
Right.
Um,
You price what the market will bear.
A lot of times I will go on competitor sites like Etsy. I'll look at Amazon Handmade and I'll see what people are charging for something similar. And I'll meet in the middle because some people will charge $10 for that same tote bag that I make.
Right.
And some people will charge $50 for that tote bag that I make. So I'm going to meet in the middle because that's what's comfortable for me. It might take me an hour to 40 minutes to make one if I made one. And now you have me thinking, I'm going to make one from start to finish and time myself and see how long it takes me to make one. Just because you're on my back right now. No, it's different for the way I work, how I price my things. Right. Find a good wholesaler. Do not go to Joann's unless it's absolutely positively necessary. And if you go to Joann's, wait for a sale and buy in bulk. So when the fabrics that I use for lining are $2.99, which they are this weekend, I'm going to buy 10 yards. I don't have to buy lining for the rest of the season. Interfacing is 50% off. I'm going to buy a bolt. That's 15 yards of interfacing.
Right. It's not just the fabric that you're buying in bulk and wholesaling. It's the notions and the hardware and stuff.
I buy zippers in bulk. I buy bag handles in bulk. I buy thread. I buy big spools of thread from the sewing supplier. I buy everything. I try to save so much money on the back end that I'm comfortable charging what I charge.
Right.
I can always charge more.
So aside from the pop-up shops, you do have a website.
I do have a website. It is lovefearlessthreads.com. It's open 24 hours.
And I'm saying, get it now because our price is going to go up.
Next episode, I'm going to come back with an actual time of how long it takes me to make a tote bag. Probably should be $200. At some of my events, I'll do a design your own bag. Where I have my swatch book and people can actually pick what they want their bag to look like. And I will create that bag. And I do not charge extra for design your own because it's the same amount of work. It's the same amount of work.
The word custom, bespoke, all of those things,
exclusivity,
demand is upsell. You know, you have to charge more just because it's custom. That's why I stopped sewing for people.
Listen,
that's why I don't sew clothes.
I don't think people actually get the full concept of what you can get, let's say, a $200 dress in the store. You come to one of us, it's not $200. The fabric alone is more than $200.
Depending on the type of fabric you get.
It depends on the fabric you get, especially, let's say, for these proms or weddings.
Weddings.
That's $1,000 off the top for a prom dress. Not even a wedding dress is $5,000.
That's the fabric. I haven't even included what my fees are. So my labor fees.
And we'll say for my custom jackets, I charge. So I do a custom bomber. You know, depending on if you get the faux leather or not. They start at $200.
That's the starting price, depending on what you want to add to it. Right.
Clothes for that reason, because people don't understand what goes into making clothes. And when I teach adults, they're like, "Oh wow, you have to do all these steps. This is what pants look like."
Yeah.
This is what we do.
And Tish, you would know because it's like the fit. To get the fit right, is so many versions of trying to get the fit right, because that's why you do custom, so that it fits your body
you want
the way it's supposed to.
As women of color, a lot of my adult sewing clients are not small, medium, large, extra large.
Right.
I have a lot of 2X, 3X, 4X.
Right.
If you can imagine trying to fit a commercial pattern on a 4X. Now they've started including sizes 24, 26, like larger sizes. And one of them actually asked me, and this is at my part-time job, can you ask them to do like a plus size class so we can learn how to grade our own things? And I said, that's a really good idea. And I will propose that idea to them. However, plug, come to me for private lessons.
That's right. That's right. Listen, teach you.
Just gone mobile. Fearless Thread Sewing Academy is mobile. We'll come to you.
See, I mean, ideas are born. That's what it is. So what do you bring? You bring the machine and everything to the people?
A lot of my people have machines that they want to learn how to use.
Okay.
But I do always suggest to people, before you buy a machine, take a sewing class to see if you actually like it. Because sewing ain't just pushing the pedal down and sewing a straight line.
Yeah.
I have adults that can't sew a straight line.
And you need to show a straight line for your pattern to fit. Because all the
Yes.
Oh,
cutting in the world and, fitting in the world, if you can't show a straight line, your garment is not going to fit you.
But I do love that people are getting more interested in making their own clothes. I
Mhm.
think having to make masks made people a lot more interested in sewing again. I have a lot of people who say, well, my grandmother used to sew and she taught me, but I didn't want to learn back then. So now I want to learn.
Right.
Um, on the flip side, I get a lot of retirees who need
Mhm.
mm,
something to do.
Right.
They like to quilt. I don't quilt. We've talked about my very brief career as a quilter. Not for me. First of all, the pieces are too small.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen some beautiful quilts, and it's like
Oh, they
that.
make some beautiful quilts. A lot of the quilters that I work with at my part-time job are determined to make me quilt. And I'm like, not gonna happen. You
Yeah.
want to see somebody throw a tantrum? Try to get me to quilt something. But I've done it. I tried it. I am one of those people who will try a craft. I also crochet Fearless Knits on the website, same website, lovefearlessthreads.com. Right now, it's just hats and scarves. I have made a sweater. It came out doll size, so we're working on proportions. I ended up giving it to my mother because I was like, I don't know who's large this pattern was supposed to fit, but
Oh
it is
my
not this
God.
large. Um,
Oh my God, that is funny.
yes,
But you know what? I understand. I knitted, it was supposed to be a poncho. The opening was like this size for the neck. I'm acting like this was just a little mistake. I stitched it closed. Now we have a blanket.
exactly. I tell all my kids all the time, we sew on the inside of our fabric to hide our
Trial and
Um,
error, man. Trial and error.
yeah,
era.
yeah.
It is a thing. I just made a jumpsuit for my part-time job. And we're pattern testing. We're in testing
Right.
stages right now. And when I tell you that crotch was so short, we just got a good laugh out of that in the fitting. I was like, I don't know who they made this for. Yeah, it's fun. It's funny that we can sit here and share these stories. I hope it's inspirational that we can sit here and share these stories. I would love for people who are listening to send us questions, or if you have specifics about a topic or something you want us to talk about, I would love for you to send that to us. You could
Absolutely.
be a whole episode, or if you want to come on as a guest, we may be able to accommodate you. I think the beauty of being able to do this is being able to share it.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, I will teach anybody how to sew. If you don't have money, it's fine. I
Right.
prefer
Yeah.
money,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that it is imperative to have a transferable skill. And I say that because when the big C came and people couldn't work,
Mhm.
everybody was panicking. I made masks. I sold bulk masks to a wellness center.
Yeah.
I had that to fall back. But to get to selling those masks to a wellness center, I donated probably about 300. So I
Yeah.
also believe in paying it forward.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
I went in my fabric stash and I had a lot of fabrics from before I went exclusively African print. I took all of that stuff that I don't use anymore and I made masks. And I just would walk around to the grocery store and just give them to anybody who wanted, because they weren't concerned about people who had to work in these public places.
Yeah, I mean when it started, nobody knew what was what, and everybody was going around, and the people that had to work, and
Yeah.
it was unfortunate.
They weren't even getting them partitioned. So I made them, I washed them, I put on gloves and packaged them, and I would just hand them out because it was a lot. It's hard to watch. You
Yeah,
expect me to be in this grocery store working with people breathing down my face with a disease that if somebody looks at me hard, I can catch.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I mean, we know more about it now, but I mean, at the time, it was scary.
Right.
And
But
Right.
me with elderly parents, it
yeah.
was like, what do you do?
One thing I do like about what we're doing here at the platform is that when we were younger, you didn't see us, women of color, in the fashion industry. I'm sure they were there. It's just that,
Mhm.
there was no social media. So
Right.
my thing is like seeing us now at the places that we are, you can do it too. Like anybody can
Yeah.
do it. Anything that you want to ask to, make your journey any easier. We have altogether what 75 plus years of experience, which is crazy
Yes.
We have very unique areas of expertise. We
in the
all know how
industry.
to do the same things.
And
Right.
but everybody has their zone of genius. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So it's like everybody goes in the fashion industry saying they want to be a fashion designer, but there's so many other things that you can do that
Many other
don't
Absolutely.
things.
require being a fashion designer.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we're going to
Absolutely.
get into that kind of stuff a little bit later, but everybody doesn't have to be a fashion designer
That's right.
Exactly.
and still use your creativity.
Because I
Which
know how
is
to do technical design. Do I want to? No. I want to hire keeping you in stitches to make sure my fit is correct.
And I know how to do specs, but I don't like to. I call like, hey Tish, I need you to
Right.
do.
We talked about that. I write pattern instructions. You don't want to write pattern
I don't want to have
instructions.
nothing
We're
to
gonna
do with
put
it.
this thing together.
I'll call Naima, and
I
that's
don't want to design anything, any textiles. I no.
I want a new print, exclusive print. I'm calling
Right.
Zaire.
and there's so many different things that you can do in this industry,
Yes, it is.
and make money,
Make
make it
really
make
good
a
money.
Will
very
like
good
to
at it.
say though, we
Yeah.
we need to put the disclaimer out there. It's not instant gratification. You're gonna have
Right.
to grunt.
It's a
Yes.
lot of work. And the thing is,
But
especially in
in
this
that grunt,
industry, just in New York, people can really test you. So my thing is like, we've all done it, but we
Yes.
want to keep the peace
Yes.
mentally. You want to make the money so you can support your family, but you also want to do it with the creative thing. So that's
Yes.
what we're trying to
Yes.
tell the people. You can have it all, but it's the way to go and navigate it.
The reason why I am Fearless Threads and I am a brand of one is because it's really hard to find people who want to do the grunt. Everybody thinks they're going to come in and just automatically make all this money and not have to grunt. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I need you to spend these 3 hours that you're here with this rotary cutter and that fabric and that pattern that I just made. That's what I need for you to focus on today. But they don't want these youngsters, it's that Instagram lifestyle. So I think social media is
Runways.
a blessing and a curse.
Exactly. The runways and the glam and the
Yes.
photo
They think
shoots
it's
and
Project Runway. And I'm like,
yeah, it's not
listen, it's the industry. There's a lot more that you need to know and you
yeah.
need to be able to do it. But
And
yeah,
that's
you
why we're
really
here.
So join us on the next podcast episode. We'll go into what each of us do and help you, come on a journey with us.
Send us questions, like, follow, share.
Tish, you want to
Tish,
say
you
something?
want to sign us off?
until next time, we will see you all